Hey, everybody, and welcome to our webinar, the first in the series of AI in practice. Now, for those of you who don't know what's about to happen, and we're going to just kind of wait for some people to get into the room, this is the beginning of a monthly webinar series where our team here is going to do our absolute best to start showing you how you can truly implement this in from a practice management perspective. We found that this is a really big gap, that so many of you will come up to us at conferences and say, man, I'm only using like 10% of what you guys have. And so that was kind of an activation for all of us. And we're like, well, we should probably make you use another at least 50% of it, which is the goal of this today. So I am just going to be here as the color commentator asking some questions, but our featured performers today are Rachel Long, Principal of Practice Management. She basically leads our practice management here. And Chris Smith, he's the team lead for solution engineering. Now, we also have John on just in case there are some questions that he can answer in chat. So please, please, please use the Q&A. We'd appreciate that because it formulates a little bit differently on the back end. And if we don't get to all of your questions, we can populate that later to send you some stuff. Also, pay attention to the chat because I'm going to be dropping in a whole bunch of really great links. Our team has created some super cool stuff for you to download, and we want to make sure you do that. So with that, Rachel, take it away.
No pressure at all, Matt. I think that's one of the best intros I've ever had. So thank you. Yeah, it's awesome that everyone hopped on this webinar today. I'm excited to get started. A little bit of my background, though. Not only have I been able to witness the client experience from actually sitting across from an advisor, going through that whole experience of, financial goals, if there's a death in the family, I've also had the opportunity to have my entire career in the financial services industry. So being there to help build advisor processes, understand not only the friction points, but I'm going to call them the happy points of growing your business. So excited to walk you guys through client reviews today. As Matt already mentioned, ask questions as we go, but let's get started. So first things first, I'm going to focus on three main, I'm going to call them ideals, and I'm probably going to talk about them a lot just because that's my personality in general. But first and foremost, your process is yours. It's, where it got you to where you are in the industry today, how your firm has grown, what works for you, what type of services you offer. Zocks is here to systematize it, right? We're here to alleviate the friction. We're here to add efficiencies. We're not here to take your process and completely change it from day one. We want to be a part of it and complement it because that honestly is what makes you you and makes your office unique. Number two, handoffs between roles are so incredibly crucial for the client experience. If you think about it, client reviews, client onboardings, those are two of the biggest times where a client is going to actually see this is how you do your process. You have a lot of great conversations, right? You've built the trust initially through that discovery process, but this is where they're actually going to say, like, this is how we do our process. And we want to make sure that's where it really hits the mark. So when you're passing information over to the operations team, when the operations doing the client reviews, everyone really does need to move, cohesively. That's a buzzword there, and just make sure it works for the client. And number three, this is kind of one of my favorites, but the best and most sophisticated platform that is not used by anyone literally has zero ROI. So when you think about adopting technology in general, it has to work, it has to be intuitive, it has to work for your processes. So those are the three themes I want to focus on today with this demo and show you how Zocks can complement all of those. First and foremost, we're going to take a couple steps back, a couple months back, because you guys have probably already done your planning back in January. Maybe you do it quarterly, maybe you do a quick check-in on Mondays. But essentially what I'm showing you right now is an advisor intelligence dashboard. It's built with the Zocks MCP. It's pulling on all of that Zocks intelligence, all of that client data, and it's going to help you be more proactive. We're going to show you a firm pulse. What held away assets are you talking through? What does the client outlook look like overall? We're also going to break it down by client priorities. A lot of you have your client segmentations, right? The tier ones are more than likely the high net worth, the more complicated, relationships, and how they, view their overall strategy. And that's fantastic. You don't need to change them. But looking at this dashboard, you can start to tweak them if it makes sense. Again, this is going to help you be proactive. What we're showing you here is who haven't you talked to? Is there a risk of attrition because the last couple meetings you've had maybe didn't have the most positive sentiment? Maybe they've talked about competitors. we're going to flag and show, hey, we need to have a conversation. They also maybe have held away assets that we're trying to move onto the platform. And so you can see that instead of just having static client segmentations built on what I'll say is predetermined matrix, you can actually look at this and start to think, where can we be more proactive? Yes, my tier ones, I do want to get those times scheduled with them, but is there any client that is left on the table right now that I would be upset with if they walked away? With that being said, again, this is built through Claude. We're also linked to the internet with this demo. So hypothetically, you could pull in any news source that makes sense for your firm. Right now, this is showing CNBC, but this is just a really great way to show the overall market intelligence, the industry. Your clients are watching the news every day. They're on social media. They're talking to their friends. This is going to show how often you're actually bringing those real life current events into the conversation. This year is showing me I have a massive gap in, everyone's talking about the Iran war. What's that doing to any treasury yields? We can talk about how often like we are having conversations about long-term care. You can customize this and build this out based on the services that make the most sense. But this is just a really great way to capture what your clients are hearing and how you can be proactive with those conversations. Showing another example of this, this is the exact same prompt. This is one that I just want to show you real quick that's actually dynamically branded. So you can put your logos, you can put your aesthetics, you can reformat it. And so just a couple options as you get familiar with utilizing Claude and the Zocks MCP overall. So let's say we've done our annual planning, we've now been super proactive, we know what we want to focus on. Let's get into the execution part of it. So I am actually teasing. I can sneak peek this, Matt. I got the sign off from like 5 different people for client queries. Client queries is actually launching June 16th. There's a webinar June 24th, so please join that as well. But client queries is how you can actually execute on your book of business. And so right now, as I go into my planning for my client reviews, I'm not only looking for clients who haven't had a client review yet, I'm also looking for their held away assets. And the reason I'm pulling this logic through specifically is so I can make sure that my team is scheduling these meetings at the same time. If I'm in surge season, if I'm just booking any client reviews in general, I want to make sure that if I'm having held away asset conversations, maybe our home office just released a new investment strategy, maybe there's a new high yield money market we want to offer, you more than likely have those talking points already. Having your client reviews scheduled back to back with the same type of look and feel, your team is going to be proactive. They're going to get you the talking points. You can make sure it's in your presentation for the review. And then practice makes essentially perfect, close to perfect. And so as you're continuing to have those conversations with your clients, if I meet with Nathan Harrison, maybe he says yes, maybe he says no, I'm going to learn from that and I'm going to take that into my next client review with Jennifer. So just a quick tease, really excited for that webinar in June. Now that I've actually gone through and scheduled, I've worked with my, director of first impressions. They sent out the scheduling links. It's time to actually start preparing. In the Zocks platform, I'm going to come up into the upcoming section. This is going to show you all of your meetings you have over the next 14 days. If you're a current Zocks user and you do not have automated meeting prep enabled, please, please, please go click that setting because it's a game changer. You can make sure that when you come in, you see a meeting, clicking the meeting prep, it's already ready to go for you. You can also make sure that it's sent out via email. So if your operations team is doing the meeting prep and maybe the advisor just wants to see the end result and they don't want to get into Zocks, perfect. You can read it via email or they can come into the platform to look at it. Scrolling through meeting prep, it's going to show you exactly the type of meeting you're having. It's going to show you who the participants are. It's also going to show you what connections you have in place. So I purposely did not connect Vincent to Holistiplan because I want to show you what that looks like.
Hey, Rachel, let's take, we have a question from Jesse that I think you're right there, which is where is it pulling the data from our CRMs to the financial institution's website? So yeah, I know that we want to address that.
Yeah, for meeting prep specifically, right? Yeah,
Yes.
so yeah, great question. So meeting prep is going to pull from all of your past meeting summaries. It's going to pull from your CRM, all of your other integrated sources. So if you have eMoney or other financial planning tools hooked up, any of those integrations as well. And if you have your email hooked up, it's going to pull from the last 5 email threads as well. We want to make sure it's a holistic experience and it's not just going and grabbing a couple different places and leaving you with some of the manual work to do. Great, great question. So scrolling through meeting prep, I do want to highlight agenda tracking. This is fantastic. We're going to show you both static data and dynamic data. And what I mean by that is the static data. These are the types of things you want your advisors asking every single time. You can also change this based on meeting type. The type of agenda you have for a client review is more than likely completely different than you have for discovery. But for a client review, I know I'm always going to make sure the beneficiaries are up to date. We're going to go through the full allocations, the market outlook, the latest status, any changes like that with their goals. Those are pretty obvious. But what about the not so obvious ones? This is where I like to call it our pixie dust. We are going to offer additional options to include in your agenda. Again, this is pulled from your integrations, your Zocks meeting summaries as well. Vincent, maybe he went to Italy. We want to follow up on that trip. I also have a specific prompt in here to actually say, if I've talked about held away assets before, please include it in the agenda. I really want to make sure we talk that through one more time. So you have the ability to kind of plug and play these. You can edit, you can delete. Scrolling down, this is where the bread and butter of the meeting prep is. These come with Zocks is available out of the box today. There's 9 different meeting types available, but you do have the ability to customize. And again, I'm going to hit on that super hard because everyone has a unique process, and I want to make sure you guys know that you can account for that in Zocks. I am actually pulling through my client segmentation in my Redtail account today, showing that maybe I have a different type of meeting prep I do for different tiered clients. It's going to walk through just a quick snapshot. When was the last time I followed up on beneficiaries? I have an RMD alert in there. Vincent is nowhere near 73, so age-wise, I don't need to worry about it, but I do want to keep track of what accounts he has. Maybe your client has a couple inherited accounts that you need to keep a better eye on before you get to that actual age of 73. And then also call out held away assets again. I also like to say a lot of the time, and I'm sure Chris will smirk at this, but our English teachers should be very happy with us. We cite our sources. So if you're ever wondering where the data is coming from, just click on any of these numbered boxes. Scrolling through, I'm just going to walk through life events and goals. Again, once this meeting prep comes through, you can actually click edit. So if you're seeing something that you want to change, you can edit it here as well. This is a very, very thorough client review prep because a lot of the times we do want to get into, all of the assets. They're qualified, they're non-qualified. What insurance, do we need to talk through today? This one I did not collect Talista plan, and so it's actually going to show me I don't have the tax return data available, but I have had several conversations with Vincent that we're still going to cite here. And then scrolling through at the bottom, you'll see the full list below. We also have the email as well that you can send out. This is customizable. You can include the agenda, making sure that your clients can come in proactive and prepared for the meeting, maybe adding a couple different client talking points so they feel more included in the conversation. I also want to highlight our Ask Anything assistant. This as well, like huge highlight call out here. This comes from all of our integrated sources as well. So as great as the meeting prep is, as great as the agenda is, that's not all the data, right? That's just the data we wanted to visualize. So explain further about Vincent's financial goals. Also, my biggest anxiety ever demoing is people having to watch me type. So appreciate you all being there for that. But you have the ability to actually utilize Ask Anything. It's going to go out, it's going to call all those different systems and get the most relevant data for you. Maybe I didn't include Vincent's, risk tolerance score in the meeting prep. I need to know that so we can talk about rebalancing. We provide a lot of insight in the assistant. Now, let's say the advisor, your operations team, you guys have prepared, you're ready to go. This one I'm actually going to go into is a live meeting. So if you're utilizing, Zoom, Teams, any of the video conferencing, you can set up your auto joining filters to automatically go into those virtual calls so you never have to come in here and click a button. This is an in-person meeting though, so I'm going to come in and click view, and then I'm going to click start, and that's actually going to start the meeting. I want to show you here that agenda pulls through with your live meeting strategy. So there are 7 items I have on my agenda. Let's say Vincent comes in and there was a death in the family, something probably more positive, exciting happened, whatever it may be, you go on a tangent and you don't cover all of the 7 items. That's okay, because the agenda tracker is going to say, hey, you only covered 5 of the 7. Those 2 extra items those are now action items for you after the meeting. So you don't drop the ball, nothing gets left in the weeds there. You also have full access during your live meeting with your meeting prep as well. And the same AI assistant is here ready to answer questions. So this is a great way to keep it on your screen. If you do still have an operations teammate join the call or join in the conference room, if they want to be the ones running it, you can keep it running just to help you stay, with the overall strategy and moving through the meeting as much as you want to. But this isn't necessarily for the client view. I was going to ask how many of you, if you want to raise your hands, have either a slide deck you present today, maybe you just pull up eMoney and walk through it. Both great options. I also realize you guys can't show me who's actually raising their hands right now. But we also wanted to show you what can be done for your clients for a better visual to show them during the meeting. So this was built with our MCP as well. This is pulling through Claude. This is dynamically branded for Gilbert and Gilbert. I'm going to assume he's crushing it on the advisory side right now. But this is actually a really easy way to bring your client along through the journey with you, right? Whether they're a brand new client, whether they've been your client for 4 years or more, a lot of the times you get into your client reviews and you do the updates and you move on to the next task. And it's hard to take the time to actually take a step back and say, like, we've done a lot together. We've put this plan in motion. Like, let's see how we're doing. So this is just an example of how you could actually build that out with our MCP. Our family tree is pretty small, but imagine a high net worth client with all of the centers of influence, the attorneys, the CPAs, the multiple dependents. Clicking into each one of these, you're going to get additional details, and it's going to get built out as you add more throughout your meetings. It's also including the circle of or the center of influences down below as well. And then it dives further into goals and achievements, all those things you've accomplished with your client, showing them, that you've delivered on your value proposition, that you're engaging more with the relationship overall and making them feel like not just a number. And then finally, at the end, we get into some really cool stuff that I know Chris is going to go into a little bit more detail at the end of this. But this is just stage by stages. Again, super interactive. You can click through it, you can read all of it, but this is the entire view of the client life cycle, all of the activities you've done, just making it much easier for a client to digest overall, maybe than going through, specific accounts or even like what's going on in the marketplace today. Just bringing it back down into terms they understand and making it a great experience. All right. Oh, I saw you, Matt.
Oh yeah. So guys, we've just got an enormous amount of questions. And so Chris, I'm just gonna kind of punt this to you before we really open it up for the rest of your part of this presentation. So the questions that are happening not just in Q&A, but are also really happening in the webinar chat. How do people find out questions? They're deep questions, dude. Like this would be some of these would be a whole other webinar, right? And so how do we work with your team and the solutions team to be able to help answer some of these questions?
Sure. Yeah, in particular of like creating this client journey.
Well, no, dude, I'm talking about some of the other questions that are in there, like being able to turn stuff on, and some people don't have the permissions that they think they should have. And, where is a lot of this information coming from? Because again, I think a lot of advisors really look at us as a magnificent solution, but it is a little black box, and they don't necessarily know how some of those things are being done. And I know that the Denver team does a really, really good job of being able to explain that way better than I will. How can they get access to them?
Yeah, they can get access to the Denver team, so the support team via in-platform in Zocks. There is a little purple icon bottom right, and that will actually, thank you, Rachel, that will direct you to a chat with support. So that is one resource if you have a very specific question. And then we also have the Zocks Academy. Rachel, if you want to toggle back to that page really quick, that has a lot of those like ones and twos, the little learning, how to turn on things, how to toggle settings. So those are kind of the two first places I would check for resources in terms of permission settings and setup on the accounts. Those are great places to start.
And there's also an email support@zocks.io, which does get routed to actual human beings, which has been one of the big differentiators between the other people who are in the space, is that you can actually talk to a human about this stuff. So fantastic. I wanted to ping you on that. I'll turn it back over to you guys.
No, that was great. Super valid question. All right, so we've walked through, obviously this is going much faster than a normal client review, but we've walked through different things you can do within the live meeting, making sure you have Zocks for your live strategy. I do want to call out if you are on Zoom for any virtual ones, you actually have access to this live agenda tracking and this meeting prep on your actual Zoom screen on the right-hand side. So you can be looking directly at a client and then they mention something, you're like, oh shoot, I can't remember what that was about, or where did they say they were going again? And you can actually use it right there as well. So I know a lot of folks are moving more towards virtual meetings today, so I wanted to call that out. Now, let's say you've had the meeting, everything went fantastic. That's not the end of it. I should probably, it's always fun in my demo account. I apologize. Let's actually reload. All right. So let's say we've actually had the meeting, the client either just left your office, or maybe you just ended that Zoom call. We want to talk about everything that happens after the client review, because again, this is where you talk about your team handoffs and do you follow up with the client and do what you say you were going to do through that client review. So coming into the past meetings, I'm actually going to go to that same household. Ironically, we had our client review yesterday. And so right here, this is where with the AI note taker, this is where we're eliminating roughly 30 to 45 minutes worth of admin work post meeting. So I do want to call that out. We have had some advisors say they take, over an hour, their firm does, of just going through processing a meeting. And I want to walk you guys through these steps because it's so crucial. So this is just an example of our past meeting notes. Again, you'll see who is in the meeting. You're going to see that full meeting summary. This is a specific one. I did win those held away assets. We're going to move over that Fidelity account. And so all of Vincent's assets will be managed under our platform. So I know my operations team is going to need this information. I put it at the very top of the meeting template. So when the CSA comes in and they are ready to start processing that paperwork, they can see exactly what they need to proceed. Scrolling through, it's also going to show you your client updates. It's going to break down the portfolio investment review, have some really good tables in there. Again, we are super flexible with how you customize these templates. We also have a really cool new template generator that we will be teasing that as well. But scrolling through, this is again is super lengthy. It's going to go through the impacts of the portfolio, the tax planning, the estate planning, all of that. So best practices, if I am in an office and we just finished a client review, more than likely the advisor ran that meeting. The operations person may have been in the meeting. Maybe they took some capacity back. I would say step one, if you are the person who ran the meeting for the client review, please review your meeting summary. We always want to maintain that human in the loop, human intervention. Just review it, make sure it's everything you had talked about. If any edits are needed for spelling, you can use our simple find and replace tool. Also down here on the right-hand side, we have a preempted follow-up email. Review this as well and just get it sent out. When you click, if you're integrated with Gmail or Outlook, when you click these buttons, we're not automatically sending the email. We're going to save it as a draft for you. If you don't have your email integrated, you can even click this copy and paste. But be proactive, get that follow-up sent back out. That way your client knows everything that you talked about. They can also share it maybe with their own CPA attorney if you guys don't have that relationship built out. They can also share it with their spouse, any of their children if needed. So just getting that out so much faster than having to go back through and consolidate everything. Once the advisor has done those two things, typical best practice is the operations teammate is going to come in. If you are running a ton of meetings because it's surge season, you're probably going to see a lot of meetings listed here. A simple filter going to unprocess, that'll help your operations teammate out. So if I'm the CSA, I'm coming in, I'm going to click view. I know the advisor has done their review. I need to get the info. I need to actually kickstart some processes. I'll go through the meeting summary. I'll go through meeting details. Meeting details, I like to call these our building blocks. We have specific ones on our defaults, but you can also plug and play which ones make the most sense to add. tax implications. This is a great one. It's going to go into much more details on tax planning. But this is just a way that if you're not in the meeting and you're needing additional details, we offer a lot more of that. You are also going to see if you have any forms tied to this. We are going to have an entire webinar, Matt and I think already decided on just forms usage in general. But whether you are an RIA or a BD, I know you probably need to track your suitability or your client reviews. We can structure this data super clean. You can get it sent off over to your CRM. Maybe you need to put it in a PDF, export it, get it over to your supervision or compliance team. Forms are just a really great way to do that. And then finally, scorecards. We're not going to touch on this too much. I have like an entire idea of what we can do for advisor coaching, but this is also a great way to see that. So if I am the CSA, I've reviewed the meeting. If I have any questions, again, the meeting summary is just a way for you to visualize the data, provide more insight on account opening. It does not mean it is a, read from the beginning to the end of the transcript that is captured. Again, we are a non-recording tool, but if you are needing additional insight from that transcript in general of what was captured during the meeting, please utilize the Ask Anything. This is fantastic for operations teammates who are not on the call with the client. So ask away your questions. It's going to pull in that information from the meeting summary as well. With that being said, we also have a lot of data we need to send to different places. First and foremost, make sure you get your meeting summary over to your CRM. I am currently connected to Redtail. All of our CRMs and integrations are going to work similarly. So if you use Salesforce, Wealthbox, anything else, you will have the same user experience here. You can edit it, you can make changes to it, and then once you click save, it's going to send that over immediately to your CRM. I'm also obsessed with this screen here because this is going to help the operations team out again. If you need to get into your CRM, we're going to provide you that hyperlink right away you can click into. But on the right-hand side, we're also going to track what's already been done and what we still need to do. So it's just a great way of saying like, hey, this is what you've done. Let's keep progressing through so you can get the meeting processed. But let's say it's surge season and you guys are in back-to-back meetings and there's other items that need taken care of. And you come back into this meeting as the CSA and you need to make sure that you finish processing. Coming up here to this little button, it's actually going to show you what you've already pushed data. So right now it's showing me that I've already pushed my meeting summary, but I have not synced any of my other data. And if I'm being completely honest, the other integrations look way cooler than the meeting summary sync. So if I do need to push more data, we know we want to get our action items over. Coming over here on the right-hand side, it's going to list all of the action items. Clicking on your CRM button again, it's going to pull up all of the tasks. It's also going to be very granular. So if there's some times where one person is knocking out a couple tasks all in the same instance, and you don't want to say, hey, go into each task in your CRM, open, close, open, close, open, close. We have this merge feature. So you can actually click on a couple, you can merge it, you can assign a new task name and description, and actually get that cleaned up before it ever gets into your CRM. And finally, I want to talk through how do we go about actually updating specific fields in these different platforms. If you're looking under your clients, you're going to see all of the integrations where you currently have that contact synced. I'm going to click on Redtail. So I've sent over the meeting summary, but I have not actually sent any of the specific fields that are tied to the contact today. I do want to call out, you can create a new contact or you can update an existing one. Creating a new contact is absolutely fantastic if you are thinking about like your client onboarding process, lead to client, getting them in the system as fast as possible. But this was a client review, which means Vince already exists in my CRM. Clicking continue, we're calling out to Redtail. We're going to bring back in all of the information you already have set at the field level today. So what you're looking at is everything in this left-hand column. These are the fields we talked about. It's not going to show every single field. It's only going to show the fields that were a part of your meeting with your client. In the middle column, this is the data that resides in Redtail today, in your CRM today. So if it says not set, that just means there's never been data there. And then on the right-hand side, this is the actual captured data that comes in from the meeting itself. If you're wanting to know, like, when the heck did we talk about that? Click on these lovely little quotes, and we're actually going to bring out exactly what was talked about with your client And that's just a great way to test through the system and make sure that you're capturing that information as needed. I'm glad I said, oh my gosh, and nothing else there.
All right.
Uh,
Well, I'm going to pause you there, and I'm glad you didn't swear. I really, truly appreciate that because this should be safe for work. But okay, so we're knee deep into Redtail, and we're actually getting some questions about that integration, and really about. And the question is what fields from CRM are used to pull data for meeting prep? So that seems like a really large question, and I don't know which one of you is better to answer that. But how would we manage? How do we answer a question like that? Chris, Rachel, do you know?
yeah, I'm actually going to pass that over to Chris. He is our CRM guru on this call.
Yeah. So for Redtail out of the box, we're pretty much looking at contacts, the household, and then also the associated events and notes as the primary, as well as some of those user-defined fields on the contact object. So whenever you guys simply connect to Redtail, we're pretty much looking at everything in there for user-defined fields, default fields, events and notes in that ecosystem of Redtail. And that's what is out of the box.
Spectacular. I appreciate that. Thank you for letting me periodically interrupt.
No, appreciate it. On the practice management side, Chris, I do also have to call out that our implementation team does help with custom mapping as well. So when you think about the different objects, especially if you utilize Salesforce as a CRM, being able to make sure it's pulled back into meeting prep specifically, they can help you with that. This screen I'm showing you though is specific to pushing data to the contact. I do want to call out as well if you utilize Redtail or Wealthbox, we actually can immediately kickstart your workflows if you've already built them out in your platform. Keywords are if you've built them. If they haven't been built, we'll give you some suggestions. But if your firm has heavily built out your Redtail and Wealthbox workflows, you can actually utilize this tab here as well. I'm actually going to click update. Looks like we're just updating 24 fields. And so we're going to get that sent over immediately to Redtail. And then you're going to get the same screen again showing you what have I done, what haven't I done. I do also want to focus on eMoney. This is one of my favorite integrations. Today we pushed to over 370 fields, so it is not a small integration. I feel like a lot of the times my past life you hear about integrations being deep, customizations being deep, and then you get into the platform and it's not as deep as you thought it was going to be. This integration is deep. I don't think I can say that word anymore, but I'm going to click on updating an existing contact. Adding Vince, he's already over in eMoney. I'm going to click continue. It's also going to link to your Zocks contact. So if you are an existing Zocks user, big advocate for making sure you have your contacts in your contact library and that they're not listed as guests in the meeting summary. That'll help ensure that your data syncing goes over correctly and can pull back in as needed. And so we called out to eMoney again. Again, pushing to 370 fields does not mean you are going to see all of those fields at the same time. That is a heck of a lot of scrolling there. So we're going to start populating on the left-hand side what data we've actually gathered. So if you're seeing zeros, it just wasn't a part of the conversation. But this is a really great place to focus on as well. As you can see, it's the same experience you would get when you're pushing your data to your CRM as well. We also have this lovely little purple box if this is the first time you've ever collected that piece of data. So again, human intervention, go through, make sure it's looking exactly how you want it to look, review what's already existing in eMoney. I know we've had some conversation with some firms where their clients actually can add their own connected accounts to eMoney. Their version of best practice was unselecting those accounts just to make sure there wasn't a duplicate in eMoney. If you don't have your clients select connected accounts, you should be good just pushing everything over. I'm actually updating 76 fields right now, and it's going to be the same experience of getting the successful pop-up coming over, and then I'm actually going to show you that in eMoney. All right. And so there's some others. I can push data to Orion if I want to. Orion data, because that's typically synced to a custodian, that's only going to be a little bit of contact information. We want to make sure that custodian is the source of truth for any of that asset information. Holistiplan is going to be your contact information and client profile fields as well. Going into eMoney real quick, I am actually in Vincent's account, going into the fact finder. and it's actually going to start showing all of the data we have collected and how quickly that can be done. Before I finish my portion of the demo, I do want to call out, we've talked about MCP and the advisor intelligence dashboards, how you can be proactive with that. We've talked about client queries. I do want to show you insights on the left-hand side. This is where we were pulling the data from when you're looking at these two dashboard examples I gave. And so insights is just a fantastic way to know what conversations are actually happening with your clients. What are they talking about the most? What products are they talking about the most? Again, practice management side, you can customize, you can add up to, I think, 4 different versions of topics you want to include. And so whether you're at the home office or in, your individual advisor location, if there's something specific, you're like, how often are we talking about this? You can actually customize this and make sure you're monitoring that across your book of business. All right, Matt, any other questions to talk through before I kick it over to Chris?
I'm trying to keep up. I'm sorry, there's so many questions. Very quickly. No, I'm just going to give Chris a chance to get set up. So, Chris, I'm assuming you're going to be sharing your screen and stuff like that, and I've got some things to drop in. But so, for those of you who are asking questions about, heck, how do we use MCP? Well, Chris is going to show a little bit of that today, but we did a webinar. So, if you just go to our page, I've actually posted it a couple of times. You can actually click on the Zocks webinar page. We did an MCP webinar. I will put that in chat specifically, so all of you have it. We're going to be doing another MCP webinar coming up next month, and I will make sure I put links to that too. But this is why you need to be plugged in to Rachel, to me, and to Chris and our Zocks main LinkedIn account. You also need to make sure that you are taking any of the Zocks emails out of what are promotions or whatever the stupid boxes that the Gmail will put them in, or your CRM will, and pay attention to these, because we really do have a very, very strong commitment to educate you on how to use this more effectively. And with that, Chris, I'm going to leave it to you.
All right. Thank you, Matt. Thank you for the intro. And Rachel obviously went over quite a bit on the client review lifecycle. So I wanted to hone in on a few particulars here, and that is going to be the client journey. So I'm going to share my screen. And with this, we're going to get to the correct spot in here. And here we go. So this is one of those documents that Rachel showed in her review. So in the client review, she went over a lot, all the way from, using insights to find opportunities, prepping in the Zocks platform for meeting prep. But she also showed off one of these documents that we generated with MCP, and that is what we're calling a client journey document. So this is a document that we're using Zocks data and Claude and the MCP server as a bridge to basically create this. This is an HTML file that I have locally on my computer. So that's how I'm displaying it, and that's how I'm showing it off. And I'm gonna go through step by step how we can start to create this for you guys, how we can connect to MCP, and then also Matt should have already posted that PDF in the chat. So feel free to use that as a guide as I go through. It's going to go through the core 6 steps of how to set this up and how to start iterating on this, how to prompt it, and how I think about these things as I begin to prompt and create a report like this using MCP and Zocks as a data source. So continuing on. We'll actually start in the Zocks platform. So in the Zocks platform, you're logged in. Most of you should be familiar with this screen already, but we will actually go into the integrations page in the bottom left, and then apps up here. Keep in mind, I do want to call out, this page can be restricted based on your role, and also part of, depending on which organization that you're a part of, you may see a slightly different screen. It may be locked down for you. So just want to call that out front, before 1,000 questions pop into chat of why you can't see it. It may be restricted depending on role and which organization you're part of. But continuing on, you can see we have this Claude connection or app, and this is the first step to get going. So we'll hit enable here. I'll select everyone, but we can lock it down to account owners and admins as well, and then enable. And then it gives you a chance to review these permissions. It's going to just pop you over to this permissions tab, and then it's going to line by line just give you all of the read access or permissions here. So you can edit these actually one by one, and it'll give you the control of what you basically want to display or allow the MCP to send out to something like Claude. Um, so this is step one, is enabling this and getting this going, and then we will actually navigate over to Claude. This is the platform I'm going to be kind of demoing on and showing you how we can actually use the Zocks MCP. So after we hit enable there, we'll hit customize here, and it will allow us to go and search our connectors. So if you just type in Zocks at the top, that will pop up, or I even have Zocks right here, and it would simply allow us to connect. It's actually on my other tab, but it's just going to bring you through a very similar page reviewing those permissions. Then you're going to hit accept, and then it would redirect me back here. And then it would look like this. You can see a few other connections I have. Spotify. I like creating my playlists very fancily in Claude, but
All right, I'm sorry, Chris. I'm gonna pause you. That's awesome. We get to see your Spotify stuff, and I would love to dive into what your prompts are there, but that might be for a different, basically a life webinar. Okay, so we're getting a couple of questions because people are a little bit concerned about the fact that you are now connecting an external protocol like an MCP with your Zocks data. Now you're showing there right there what are the read-only tools. Would you mind just talking a little bit about that security component of it and what happens with that information, please?
Yeah, definitely. So MCP is, I would say, the best practice in terms of how to feed data to these AI agents. So as these LLMs, AI agents like Claude or ChatGPT continue to grow and become more advanced, MCP is the best practice in terms of connecting there. And in the Zocks platform, we have a few options for PII redaction. So you could redact PII and that wouldn't be sent over. And then there's also further development around basically masking of PII only for the MCP, but that is a separate topic, I would say. And then best practices inside of these platforms, so these third party that we're basically connecting to, we want to always make sure that we're not just on a free plan, that we're on a paid plan, and we do not have training of these models basically turned on. I would say that's best practice and guidance from our side. Cool. So with that, you can see here's the Zocks connection. It goes over those same kind of those permissions, but this is the conclusion of step one actually now. I think we said we finished step one, but this is actual step one done is connecting here. And then navigating, go back one page, and then navigating back to my very fancy Google Doc, we're going to go into step two. And step two is where things start to become fun. So that client journey I showed you, this is where it started. The idea, comes to basically generate a repeatable template and a report that we can get Claude to reproduce no matter which client we select. And what I like to do when I'm thinking of these prompts is start with the framework. Basically, start with a sketch. Start with a wireframe, if you would. A wireframe is a term that's used in website development, but it's just sketching out the outline of how we want this document to look. This can be an actual sketch. So if you wanted to do it on a piece of paper, you definitely could. Just what's going to be at the top, what's going to be the header, where should the logo go, what should be the meat and the body of the actual document. But what I usually find myself doing is just describing this in words. So very similar to what I have on screen here, these bullet points, and this represents that client journey doc I showed you. So horizontal timeline at the top, it has all of my key categories: onboarding, goal setting, action, milestones, and ongoing. And then pulling from Zocks, interactive family tree, where I click into it and it expands each of those profiles. And then down below, a grid of those milestones and highlights of those big wins and achievements you've had with that client. And then at the very bottom, the detailed view that Rachel showed of line by line. Here's all of those sections in onboarding, goal setting, and basically why we came to that conclusion. So this is step one, is framing the idea, framing what we can do, and framing how this report should actually look. And once we do this, we will actually save this for step number three, which would be turning over and taking our kind of messy prompt and bring it into a more structured prompt. So something that I would actually feed to a system like Claude as a first round, so we can actually generate our first kind of pass at it before we go on to, step four. But we can see here on the left-hand side, and this is also in the PDF that Matt posted in chat. So please download it, keep it, and you guys have these instructions to keep hold of as you guys start practicing these skills. But this is an example on the left-hand side of, I would say, something I would quote as messy prompt, or something that's a little too short and it's not enough guidance to really get a deliverable that you're looking for. But you can see on the right-hand side, this is how I've started to break out my prompting when I'm giving Claude instructions. So I highlight the goal at the very top. We want to generate an HTML client journey report for a named family, drawing their info, from the Zocks meeting results. Then we also want to set the audience. So it's a client-facing document. Then we want to reconfirm the data source, which is the Zocks MCP, where we want to pull in contacts, past meetings, and all the AI results for those contacts. And then the layout. This is what I have from step two. So basically exactly what you have from step two. So whether that be that drawn out drawing on a piece of paper, or if it's like I have some bullet points of how the document should actually look, we would make sure that's included in our layout step of the prompt. And then down below, we have Gilbert and Gilbert. So this is just my branding for my fake advisory firm. And then you can, specify details here, but if you guys have additional branding, you can definitely include that here, or specific fonts you would use. And then last is specifying the output. We just want an HTML file to start. I will do a quick pause. I see the chat is going. So Matt, do you need me to pause or anything, or are we good?
Yeah. So I think the big thing that we're hearing from a lot of people in the chat and also the questions are really the availability of financial advisors to be able to use MCP specifically. I know that this is something that our team is really actively working on, trying to meet with all of your broker dealers, because if you don't actually have it set up correctly on the back end, which, by the way, Chris did show you some of those steps that you want to protect the personal information and things like that. If you all want us to meet with your broker dealers, RIAs, or anything to really help have this conversation, that would be something we would be more than happy to do. We have a whole team that helps with that. And so, Chris, I just wanted to go ahead and interject with that before we go ahead and turn it back over to you.
Thank
Oh,
you.
and I'm sorry, Jessica Henderson, I just reposted the PDF in the webinar chat to everybody, so it should be there.
Perfect. Thank you, Matt. I think that's a great point, and I know there's a lot of active conversations with broker dealers and RAs to basically get this approved and find a pathway to get everyone using Zocks MCP. Cool. So with that, after step 2 and 3, after we compile the prompt, we will go back into Claude, and this is where I would actually use that prompt. I'm going to go and copy it actually from here real quick. Give me a second. So we'll just take this outline that I created. Good. Go into Claude, and then I could just paste this in here. You may want to space it out a little, but this would start generating that output, and this is basically going to give us that first pass at it. And I have one that's preloaded, so we don't have to sit here and wait. It usually takes a couple of minutes to actually generate, but this is that example. So if I go to the very top, this is that identical prompt that I created, and then it's going to go through, it's going to load in the actual Zocks integration that I'm telling and talking about as the data source. And then it's going to ask me a few follow-up questions. So, which family should I run this first report on? How should I handle gaps in meeting data for this test? And you can choose all of these things. You can choose which family you want to use. If you want to use kind of dummy data for the first pass at it, or if you want to use only client data pulled from the Zocks MCP. So it'll go through, it'll hit all these points, it'll ask you a few questions, and then you can see it's going to actually go into the Zocks MCP, list out the past meetings, get the details from the client, and list out the AI results. So it's going to go through, it's going to actually create this as a first pass. So just off that prompt, it will give us something like this. And this is how we're going to start creating this client journey. It's going to produce something very similar to what Rachel and I showed you, slightly different just based on the prompt, but that's where we come into the next step, which is step 5, which is iterating on the actual process. So if you have changes as you continue to kind of work on this, this is the good chance to go through, make changes. An example being let's go back here. In our finalized or produced report, in the top right-hand corner, I have a deep link back to Zocks. So for any of the contacts referenced on the report, it's going to actually link directly back to Zocks. But this being step 5 would be, a great chance to go into Claude again and say, hey, let's add those links back in the top right-hand side. I want to make sure I have the actual connective tissue back to the data source, and that being Zocks. So that's kind of step 5. Keep on iterating over the actual document, and then you will get this nice, pretty output when you're ready to have this repeatable. And that will go into the final step, which is step 6. That's highlighted on that PDF that you guys have as well. But step 6 is saving it as a skill. So if you guys are using Claude, it's called a skill, but there's a few other terms based on the AI platform you're using. But you can just ask Claude to save it as a skill, or at the very top, you can actually say turn into a skill, and then this is where this becomes repeatable. So for any family, for any client, you can just simply ask Claude to recreate this report and generate a new client journey report for that individual. So that is the final step. And with that, I'll have Matt also post in that skill file in the chat. And with that skill file, if you guys are actually using Claude, it's going to give you the skill to create this client journey report that I have on screen. So if you connect to Zocks MCP, upload that skill and just ask Claude to use the client journey report skill, go in, find the Jones family, it will generate and run this report for you using Zocks as the data source. So thank you for letting me walk you through that. And Matt, I'll turn it back to you.
Yeah. So here's the thing. What happened in the chat and what we're already experiencing here is what we were entirely prepared for. So we really wanted to show you something very, very specific, but I think what the team is going to go back and we're going to look at what our webinar schedule is for AI in practice, and we might need to go ahead and do a 101, 201, 102 level sort of things. But as a person who I haven't been here for very long, I have to say that I feel much more prepared to communicate what we do here at Zocks by spending time in the Zocks Academy. I did all of the courses, including the integrations in Zocks Academy, and I really, really feel it really helped a whole bunch. So I would love for you to all have you or your team spend a little bit of time in Zocks 101 specifically, because it's really, really good. The other thing that I think really, really bubbled up is the fact that this is not necessarily a wildly advanced usage of Claude specifically, but if you're not dipping your toes in these AI systems yet, you need to do some toe dipping, everybody, because when you start working on those skills, when you can really build some very specific skills. Now, what Chris shared was a very detailed prompt, but he didn't get to that prompt the first time. That is what we refer to as an iterative prompt, where you're getting more and more specific and building that skill over time. But testing these things out, creating projects in GPT, working with skills in Claude, doing different sorts of co-work projects are things that all of you should start doing, because here's the deal. It can make your practice way more efficient, way more effective, and save you so much time. But more importantly, what Rachel and I love more than anything is it increases your confidences and allows you to be a better advisor and more present for the things that your clients truly need you for. So with that, if you have not connected with the three of us or four, since John's on the screen now too, please make sure that you go ahead and connect with each of us on social media. We are consistently posting stuff to help educate you on how to use our products and services, and more importantly, not just run a better practice, but also have a better life. So for everybody here, we'll see you later. Thanks, everybody.